Welcome back to another episode of The Brothers View. Episode 13?
Somewhere in there.
13 around there?
Yep. Lucky number.
We're almost towards syndication, bro. We're going to get paid royalties off of this.
We're getting close to that number. Sure. Yeah, that worked.
Oh my God. Just you watched. So, did you watch the presidential address, State of the Union?
State of the Union? No, I did not watch the State of the Union.
Okay. Okay. Well, you probably should have. So, I mean, it's election year. So
Of course, yes.
dropping promises like crazy. So the president said that he wants to do a housing credit of $5,000 for 2 years.
Yeah, I did hear the highlights on this.
Okay.
Yes.
Which was quite interesting because it's not the first time it's been done. I don't know if you remember, I think in 2010. Yeah, about 2010, they did the housing credit for $8,000. So you got a housing credit for $8,000. It started off as a loan. So I think it started off as $7,500. Then they raised it to $8,000. And then from there, they did it to, it was a loan. And then they gave it to you. It was just a credit. You didn't have to pay it back. So like the people who jumped on it early had to pay it back. Then after that, it became like a loan. Not a loan, I'm sorry. It just became a credit.
Right.
So the intention's good. But every time we throw money at the problem, it makes it worse.
And that's my primary issue with it.
Yeah.
But this is like with every solution we're coming up with lately. It's just throw money at the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Our government should be looking at the underlying issues for why our economy is the way it is.
Yeah.
Just trying to find these little band-aids of throwing cash at the situation.
Yeah.
I mean, it solves a problem in the short term, but it creates just as many problems in the long term. So every time we just throw cash out into the system, we're creating another problem that is adding on to every other program that we throw cash into the system. And that's a whole other entity in itself that nobody really talks about. And it's as much of a problem, a contribution to every other issue that we're having financially.
I think the government doesn't know what their job is anymore. And I think us as individuals don't know what we want our government to do. So there's a problem, fix it. But really the only thing the government ever really can do is throw money at it or write legislation on it. And every time you write legislation on it, you hurt people. In terms of like me being a business owner, right? As legislation increases, it drops my productivity. So the only thing I can do is raise prices to compensate for that, right? So at the end of the day, yeah, you may have created a safer product, you may have created a better service, but at the cost of what? The consumer faces that burden. So like, I think if we inject an extra $5,000-$10,000 a year in housing, naturally speaking, people are just going to raise the prices of houses. Because if you increase cash, I got to increase price. That's just basic economics. And I think that's part of the reason. And, this is totally separate, but it makes sense. Look at student loans.
Right.
We put all of this money in for education. Prices are crazy for education. They're like way out of control. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's a great idea. And I think the math behind it was it'll drop your mortgage percentage, like cash on cash should be like 1.5%, because it comes up to like an extra $400 a month or something like that. So, but I just don't think it's going to solve the problem. And I know you were telling me, I mean, we have this conversation all the time. You kind of don't have any choice right now. You either got to make more money or, move in with people to make it work. You know what I mean? And it's like, how sustainable is that over time? Especially if your family's growing.
We were brought up on the concept of there's no such thing as free money. There's nothing that's actually for free. There's no free lunch. There's no free anything.
Yeah.
Okay. If money came from somewhere, okay, it had to get pulled from somewhere else. It's that simple. All you're doing is shifting the money from one direction to the other.
Right.
And that is a easier solution for governments to do in terms of you referring to the, government forgetting their jobs, because what really needs to happen is legislation, budget cuts, adjustments, realities when it comes to these types of situations. Where you're talking about individual families, finances, or the government budget itself. It amounts to the same situation where we need to recognize the fact that if you're just throwing money at the situation, if that money didn't come from an additional source, additional taxes, you pulled it from some other program or what have you, you're going to have a deficit that eventually we're going to pay for in one way, shape, or another. That money just doesn't disappear. Just because you gave somebody a break on housing doesn't mean that they're not going to feel that pain somewhere else. So it's hard to sit there and look at the nitty gritty of telling yourself, if we're talking about your own personal finances, is okay, I can't afford housing, so there I either need to make more money or I need to make cuts in other parts of my life. This is the same thing that I have a problem with this idea when it comes to the government just giving these tax credits. Well, where is that money coming from? We're not, the revenue isn't coming into the United States, specifically the government. Well, we can just say, oh, we're going to give this tax break. Well, how is that going to get paid for in the end? And this is my problem is, okay, we're going to give people, and that sounds really good. Obviously, we're all being affected by the housing. We all need a break. We all need a little bit of help. Okay, but what's the end result? Where is this going? How is this going to get paid for? How does this actually solve the problem? Just because you're giving me help with my rent or my housing or my mortgage in the short term, that doesn't change the underlying fundamental economics that drove us to this situation. What are we actually doing about that?
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, like they say there's a housing shortage and I kind of get it, but I also feel like the housing shortage is kind of being manipulated by corporations buying these houses. I don't think they're buying that. I mean, there's a guy that was on 60 Minutes and they got like millions of homes across the United States, a company based out of Canada. And they're like, they're managing hedge fund money and whatever, and they're buying these houses and what have you. And I kind of feel like, wow, is that not artificially creating this housing shortage that you can't get housing?
I find this idea of corporations buying housing to be incredibly complicated. And I feel like it's really hard to find the truth on this issue because there's so much rhetoric that's going on. Yeah. There's a large contingent of people who are explaining or claiming that you actually are improving the housing situation by corporate entities coming into it because corporate entities are trying to buy houses.
Yeah, it's creating a market, right?
Okay, there's a market that's being created for it. Therefore, lenders can build more houses. The argument here is the real problem is that because of pandemic, housing crisis, zoning, whatever garbage you want to come up with is the real reason behind this, is lenders can't make enough housing for the demand that exists. Okay. Now, that is an easy concept for me to grab onto because it's simple economics. It's supply and demand. It's that simple. We have an increased population. They all need housing. We do not have an increased supply. Supply is not able to keep up with the demand in housing. That is a much simpler explanation as to what's happening in the housing crisis. To sit there and point to corporations and saying they're the cause of the problem.
I definitely think they're part of it. Natural inflation is part of it. It's more expensive now, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's contention.
But I just think there's so many factors because you got so many young people that are like, dude, I'm just going to stay living with my parents' house. There's a lot more people that stay, and you and I were talking about this, the need to move out or the rush to want to move out isn't how it used to be. I remember I was dying to move out as a kid. I was dying to drive. Now, people are kind of like slowly just stagnant. They're not doing shit.
But there's so many conversations about the economics of our money, our financing, and credit, and all this other stuff. I think the current generation that's coming up is a lot more dollar savvy than what we were when we were in the younger generation.
Definitely more information. Okay. Well, I hope so.
So then those individuals are, I think, just looking at the simple economics of it. Why am I going to go out and spend 50% of my income on a house, whether it be a mortgage or rent or what have you, when I can spend a small fraction of that and stay with mom and dad?
Right.
You know what I mean? Now, keep in mind, we keep talking about this because it sounds really cool, but actually the reverse is actually happening. You're having more and more retirees moving in with their kids.
Yeah, because they can't maintain,
with the same economic realities. They're on a fixed income. They're better off, renovating the garage and creating a quote-unquote in-law quarters for mom or dad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And give them their amount of independence, but they're saving a great deal of money because that's just the way that the economics of housing is right now. That person can't afford it.
Right.
And enjoy a comfortable living anyway.
And then I think that obviously inflation makes a big deal. Interest rates make a big deal. But wages have been stagnant for too long. They haven't moved. They haven't matched corporate profits. And, I'm all about big business, man. I think business should run. Business should be profitable. You should make as much money as you want. That's what it means to be, an American. But I'm starting to think that if some of those corporate profits would trickle down to like their employees, everyone would make more money, and kind of this wouldn't be such of a big problem that it is today. Because I really think it affects everybody. In my neighborhood, we all get the increase in property taxes, and everyone felt it. You know what I mean? I don't care who you are, you felt that increase in property tax, and it's not where you can turn around and just say, "Hey, I'm going to make more money this year." You're probably not, and if you do, it's going to be insignificant. And then you wonder why people hop from job to job. And it's just I don't know. I just think I'm not against big corporations. 100% not. I freaking support and respect, and maybe one day I can be that big corporation. But I definitely think that we need to change that mentality. A little bit more needs to flow down to everybody else in the company.
I definitely agree there needs to be an adjustment in the way that our corporations and our citizens are being taxed, because I think our taxation system is based on a world that no longer exists. Okay,
What do you mean?
People generate income very, very differently today.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? Corporations operate very differently today than they did when when these taxes were implemented.
Okay.
So we have to take that into consideration. Specifically when we talk about corporations, and I think they're getting, I think pretty much onus is being put on them than there should be. But the quote unquote deal that we have with corporations is that we give them easier tax incentives because they're supposed to be creating jobs.
Right.
Okay. That's the principle behind this idea, is that a large corporation comes in, they're going to bring in some sort of industry, some sort of development, some sort of, I don't want to say manufacturing because that's dying, but
They're gonna do something.
they're supposed to be creating growth and jobs. Okay. Now we're very quickly moving into this whole AI conversation.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Where a lot of jobs are going to start to disappear. Now there will be some pain, I don't know, short-term, long-term, depending on who you ask, where everybody's going to have to basically move their skills over to some other job. But we're talking about a large number of jobs. Okay. And corporations are moving and investing into AI to basically save on their labor.
Yeah.
Okay. If that's what you're doing, and I don't fault the corporations for doing that, but that doesn't follow the deal that we talked about in terms of giving you a tax break because you are creating jobs, because now you're not.
You're doing the opposite.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, to what extent this is, I don't think we really know. Everyone's got these weird projections. Some of them are a little bit extreme. Some of them are, probably not reality.
Yeah.
But there will be a shift in the way that labor works. And if big corporations are not providing that labor, then we need to have a conversation about how those tax breaks are adhered to. Yeah. But that's going to get challenged further because the idea and the economics about wage not adjusting correctly is being challenged by a lot of different people. The statistics out there to me is really interesting. Who gives out what statistics seems to depends on whatever their political persuasion is or whatever it is they're pushing for. Because I've seen a lot of economists talk about the fact that actually when you calculate inflation and what have you, the average citizen today makes more money, okay, and lives on more, even when adjusted for inflation, than somebody did in the 1960s.
Well, we do definitely buy more shit. We buy more junk. I think it's readily available. We also have less savings, though. I don't know. We'd have to go back and you and I were just talking about this. We have to find somebody who's an expert of the 1950s. Probably where America was probably at its, only one person needed to work, picket fence, everybody could buy a house. At least that's what they painted it. Some Norman Rockwell image. We definitely have more debt, and we have more access to more crap. I don't know. This guy, Gary Vee, he talks all the time. And he's like, well, the reason why my parents had money was because they didn't have access to buy stupid shit on Amazon all the time. So we saved money. We didn't buy junk. You know what I mean? You weren't 2 o'clock in the morning scrolling through your phone and say, oh, I'm going to buy that. You know what I mean? There's no TikTok shop. I think they've made it too easy for us. And I say the world has made it too easy for us to spend money.
Because we've chosen to as individuals, and that's part of the issue. And those same individuals will talk about how, you used to have one television in the house. Okay. So if you wanted to watch television, it was family time because there was one TV. Everybody had sat her on the couch.
We all watched the same thing.
And there might have been a negotiation, or there might have been a totalitarian parent that decided what you were going to watch, but you were all watching the same thing. And if you were going to talk about anything, it was going to be the one thing that you watched because you had no choice. Okay. Now every kid has a TV in their room. Okay.
Yeah.
Which they don't even watch because they've got a device, a smartphone, tablet, what have you, that they can watch anywhere at any time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So do we really need every child in the house to have a tablet? Does every child need to have a tablet and a cell phone? Mom, dad, everybody? We can't imagine life without
Yeah, I
it.
was about to say it would never work in my house.
You should have saying it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
You know, I don't own a laptop and it drives me crazy because, like, dude, I have to buy a laptop. I don't want to spend the money. I'm trying to be fiscally responsible. I can wait home to get to my computer or I can do it on my phone. But honestly, it sucks. I want to go out and buy a laptop. But there's a part of me just like, screw it. I'm gonna drop the money and do it. But I don't really need it. And these are the hard conversations that aren't really happening because it's so much easier to just get all this stuff.
Yeah.
But that's also the reality of the world today. So I mean, this is what I mean. We need to adjust the economics or that picture to the way we live. I mean, it's different.
Well, also, your friend Bernie Sanders, he's proposing a 32-hour work week.
I saw that.
Saw that, right?
Yes, yes.
With no change in compensation. So if you make $50,000 a year working 40 hours a week, you're now going to still make $50,000 a year working 32 hours a week. And I'm calling him a socialist. Even I think he said he's a socialist.
He openly, I believe,
Okay,
I'm
good.
pretty sure he's openly.
So his what do I want to say? His aim, his motivation is purely socialistic. But if we look at it from an efficiency standpoint, you got some of these companies like, your Googles and well, not Amazon. Amazon's the opposite, but Google or whatever. I think Apple does this where you kind of work how many hours you want to work. And you can, that kind of more techie side, Silicon Valley type deal where you kind of just come in, work when you want to work. I think if it's Google or one of these big companies, they got beer in the break room, dude. You can go and just pop a beer and that, I think, I mean, I would never implement it in my company, but I think that has shown to increase or improve efficiency. So I know people that basically Friday is a waste of time for them at the office because they don't want to be there and they're just watching the clock for 8 hours. All right. Or if you're working on a weekend or if you're working on a Sunday. So I kind of would be interested to see if the 32-hour work week makes you more efficient and more productive. I do think we're going to have some serious challenges at the beginning. So they are going to, well, first of all, it's just a proposal. I don't know if it'll ever pass, but they're going to phase it in, I think, over 4 years. So let's say, year one, you do 38, year two, 36, year three, 34, then year four, you got the 32-hour work week. I'm just saying, you are probably one of the most overworked people that I've ever seen. You're always working fucking overtime. You're always this, you're always that. And you're always like, oh, they call me in on my day off. Or, I was like, damn, you might like this. Imagine if you got paid the same amount of money, but you only had to do 32 hours of the work. Purely from okay, and I'm asking you because this is right up your alley. Purely as a working, as an employee, would you fault that? Wouldn't you like that?
I find it interesting that Bernie's bringing this idea under the current economic situation. Okay.
Oh, shit.
Under the current economics that we live in right now, the way things are, I'm calling absolute bullshit on this idea. It's completely unsustainable and doesn't freaking work. The amount of people right now in this country, okay, who are working a 40-hour work week, okay, and then working some other job,
Yeah.
okay, a part-time, in order to try to maintain their standard of living. It's the only way that they could afford housing, okay, is to go out and work another job. So if you literally told a guy, okay, look, you only need to work 32 hours, I'm going to pay you the same as if you were working 40 hours.
Yeah.
You freed up 8 hours a week.
Yeah.
Excellent. He can now go work another job somewhere else and make more money. You didn't save any productivity for this person. You didn't alleviate any of his free time. He doesn't suddenly have any more family time. Instead of working 5 days a week at his job, working 40 hours, okay?
Yeah.
Now you're telling him he only needs to work 4 days, make the same amount of money. So now he's got 2 more days that he could work and still have Sunday off.
So you think if we implement the 32-hour work week, someone would just go get another job to make up for those hours?
Under the current economy, the way that things are, absolutely, that's what would end up happening. The person wouldn't work any less hours.
Okay.
That's just not the reality of it. You would have to somehow increase for those individuals who are doing 60 hours a week
Yeah.
or more. Okay. You would have to now pay them for 32 hours
Yeah.
what they're making in 60. That's the only viable option. And honestly, I think greed would kick in anyway. And if you did that, I still think that guy would go ahead and say, you know what? I can work another 8 hours and pay for my boat. I can work another 8 hours and pay off my mortgage. I can work another 8 hours and help
So
pay off my credit.
then essentially we're saying America has just this working mentality.
Absolutely.
But there are other countries, lots of countries that don't work the way we work. They get more time off, they get more vacation days, they get more sick days, they get all of that. So is that not just something that we need to change as Americans to maybe make our whatever our culture, our working ethic, we kind of need to change that. Because I mean, I don't want to spend 60 hours of my week working. You do it because you have to, I get it. But if there was an alternative, why wouldn't we embrace the alternative? Why, if you gave me time off, the first thing I'm gonna do is go work? Does that mean I have no purpose in life? I just want to work? You know what I mean?
I mean,
I just think we got to change that culture.
we could argue about how capitalistic American society is, and it's basically fundamentally based on capitalism. And obviously, Bernie is trying to move that needle in a different direction.
Yeah.
Okay. And we can argue about the values of some of those systems. But understand that when we talk about these other countries that have these lower work weeks and different styles, siestas, 3 or 4 hours a day that they're not working.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
shut
saying?
down and-
There is a different mentality that goes with those individuals because they're operating under a different system. You know what I'm saying? So the type of changes that we're talking about are so fundamental. You'd have to change so many different things. You may not no longer recognize or even like the amount of changes that would have to take place in order for that to go down. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's something as simple as like, you know what? I only want to work 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon so I can go out and have a lunch at a restaurant. Well, who's working at the restaurant? That guy needs to take 3 to 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Now, if I told you as a business, you're going to run your business, but you're going to shut it down for 4 hours a day when no one else is working.
Yeah.
Okay. So when no one else is working and they have free time, you're going to close your business. I mean, as an entrepreneur, that doesn't make sense to you.
Yeah.
Because it's built into our mentality of how we see the economics of the United States. Now, I get it. Okay, in other countries, different situation, different economics, different programs, different governments. It might work, but the amount of changes that need to happen in order for this to go through,
Well, yeah, and I wonder. I mean, 40 hours is a fictitious number. Why is it 40 hours? I mean, I know it used to be 12 hours or 14 hours. I think they passed the Fair Labor Act or something in 1930. I don't know when. I think it was a Roosevelt thing. It's irrelevant. The point was, whoever came up with the 40-hour work week, I don't think it was backed by any sort of science or any sort of whatever. They just said, hey, 40 hours is good. Why can't we get it done? Yeah, 8 hours a day. That's how we got 4. So why was it 8 hours? Why can't it be 7 hours? I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying, I would like to see.
that's a popular
it's
number.
possible.
And as far as I know, the 40 hours has only been, we can argue as to why or when this happened, right? But the 40 hours is only for a legal designation for overtime.
Yeah.
Okay. You're under no obligation to work 5 8-hour shifts. As a matter of fact, I
full-time
work
employment is considered 40 hours.
40 hours. I understand because that's for the definition of overtime.
Okay.
Okay. And it's also the cutoff point for, I don't know how these guys came up with these numbers, but it's also the cutoff point for where a person, where you measure their productivity versus the quote unquote benefits that you're providing them. By benefits, I'm talking about how we structure the health insurance benefits that you get where the employer puts in a certain percentage, you know, your 401k matchings, your social security, all this stuff that goes on into the background. They've all done their numbers on how the company can basically continue to make money without incurring all those expenses. So if that person doesn't work at least 32 hours, it's almost impossible for a company to provide you these benefits and then still make a profit, which is why you get less of these benefits if you were a part-time employee or per diem. You know,
Yeah,
so
I remember that.
that's
I
an
remember
issue.
I understand all that, but I kind of feel like they did that afterwards. We got a 40-hour work week.
No, they
so now
adjusted
let's
the numbers
make-
based
yeah.
on that number. No. They could very easily ignore that number and say, okay, we're going to do a 32-hour work week. Okay, that means 32 hours worth of productivity. Okay, then that means your medical insurance portion is going to go up.
Yeah.
Okay, because you are now working less hours, you're producing less, so therefore that cost has to be now redistributed. So now you're saying, okay, you're going to work the same amount of money
Yeah.
because you're working less hours. You're technically less productive. Okay, so therefore,
Yeah, and I think that's where the argument is. The people that work less hours, you're probably going to get more productivity out of those hours. Now, this doesn't work for every industry, right? The guy who's delivering packages, he's not going to be more productive if he works less hours. He's going to deliver less freaking packages. That is the truth of it, right? But,
and most of my industry, healthcare, there's no increased productivity by cutting those
by
hours.
cutting hours, right?
That's not going to happen.
Yeah, so I wonder what Bernie is going to do. I don't think it'll pass. I think it's just too much of a change. We can't even stop daylight savings. So, that pissed me off, bro. I lost my hour. Oh, my God. I was watching a UFC fight, and all of a sudden, it was from 2 a.m. it turned to 3 a.m., and I was like, what? No, dude. This is horrible. This is absolutely horrible.
You're joking about them calling me all the time, but I forgot that I took on an additional shift for that Sunday. So I wasn't looking out for daylight savings because it happens in the middle of the night. I don't know. I'm not paying attention. But I was actually working the next day.
Uh-huh.
So when everything went off, my alarm's waking up and I'm going to go to work. I'm like, oh, man, I lost an extra hour of sleep when I need to actually go to work, you know? I was like, I need to pay attention to it. I'm like, I'm looking at my clocks. Everything's wrong. I'm like, what happened? I'm like, it's March. Crap, I lost an hour.
Yeah.
I'm figuring this all out at 4 o'clock in the morning. So,
Well, that 32-hour work week would have become 31 hours now?
no.
No, I know.
No.
Just trying to help out Bernie, man. Trying to help him out.
Yeah, good luck, Bernie.
I wanted to say congratulations to you. Another one of your friends just became president again.
My friend?
Yeah, Putin. You got great friends. You got Bernie. You got
I see
Putin.
that. I see that.
Yeah,
I
he
wish
just
these guys
became
would call me.
president. I think he's president until 2030.
Yep,
They do
2030.
5-year terms.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the interesting statistic,
Uh,
okay, if he makes it to 2030, he will be the longest running leader of the Soviet Union since Stalin.
ooh, maybe that's what he's going for.
I mean, he's got that KGB old world, Soviet
Stalin
Union
got some
mentality.
similarities, right?
Yeah. I mean,
I mean,
there's
just
something
saying.
there, but
I mean, Stalin was crazy son of a bitch, but he was a badass.
he elevated the country
Yeah.
for whatever reason. I mean, you
did.
call it whatever you want, but
Yeah.
he did elevate that country to a different level.
To a different level. They became global player. I think Stalin was he prime minister, president, whatever during World War II, right? I think it was World War II. Stalin. Yeah, World War II.
Yeah. World War II is when he came to power. It's the prime minister part that I'm.
Yeah, I don't know if he's
questioning. I'm not
prime
sure. I forgot what the
prime
actual.
minister, president.
I forgot the actual position.
Czar.
See, he wasn't a czar that much. No, he
They
wasn't a
killed the
czar.
czars, right?
Yeah,
With the whole
yeah, yeah.
Anastasia and whatever.
Yes,
That's the
yes,
last Tsar
yes,
family.
yes.
All right, we gotta close out our segment. Pussy or patriot? Bernie Sanders.
Pussy. Sorry, can't do it.
He makes me laugh. He's like that uncle that you just don't listen to that just talks nonsense. And he's such a smart dude. But yeah, I'm gonna say Bernie's a pussy. I've never really liked him. No, I shouldn't say I never really liked him. I've never taken him seriously. He just makes me laugh, and he always looks like his hair's not combed. He just rolled out of bed.
It's almost unfair. I'm still gonna come with pussy, but it's almost unfair in the sense that we have been raised so much under a capitalistic mentality.
Yeah.
That what he talks about just seems so divorced from reality. You're just like.
Outlandish. Yeah.
You can't take it seriously. Like, we've already gone down this road. This doesn't work, so it's like, why are you, you may as well be selling marshmallows. I mean, no one's going to take you seriously. At least that would actually be capitalism if you were selling marshmallows.
He looks like a
Was he?
marshmallow.
That'd be the best.
I don't know what a marshmallow salesman looks like, but
Fluffy.
oh, for sure. Like, what was that guy from Ghostbusters? Stay Puft?
Stay Puff, yes.
Biden, pussy or patriot? I'm gonna call him a patriot just because he's been. I mean, like him or not, he's devoted his life to politics, to some sort of leadership role, to making change. I admire him for that. He's a career politician. I admire him for doing that. He could have done so many other things. He probably could make a lot more money in the private sector, and not get made fun of the way he gets made fun of on a daily basis. So I admire his tenacity.
We're gonna do a whole show on this subject, okay? But I'm gonna tell you right now, I have to call him a pussy,
Oh,
and we're gonna go into this more in a later episode.
I'm not a
But-
Biden fan.
No. But what I'm saying is, the 2024 election, okay, would be a much better event for all of America if Biden had said 2 years ago, "I'm not running," and
yeah.
the Democrats had put up somebody stronger, more vetted. He should have stepped aside and let someone else come in, because there's too many issues with him, and it's not even his position. It's just like his health, his demeanor. There's so many things that are coming into it. So now our choices are Biden versus Trump, and honestly, there might have been a Democrat I could have voted for if he had stepped aside and someone else had come in. I would have liked that opportunity. The country would be a better place going into this election if he had done that.
Yeah, but
and that would have been the patriotic thing to do.
But nobody's
for his
willing to do
party.
that. Yeah, no one's willing to be a 4-year president.
No, we're a full country full of pussies right now.
Yeah, no one wants. Yeah, I don't think anyone's tough enough to make that hard choice. Because the same thing could be said about Trump. Showed up, disrupted the status quo, and said, "Okay, guys, now what?" But he can't do that. And I think if anybody could have done it, he could, because he don't give a shit. I don't think he gives a shit.
I think he's got a lot more fire behind his position. Whether you like his position or not is not really what I'm talking about. But there's a great deal more passion. Like, he truly believes he has some work that he could do.
Yeah.
Now we could debate the strength of that work. That's a whole nother conversation. But in his mind, he believes that that he can help.
Yeah. In his mind, he believes he can help. You're right. All right. Putin. Pussy a patriot. I'm never calling Putin a pussy.
For Russia, he's an absolute patriot. For Russia, he's an absolute patriot.
Yeah.
Okay. For us, he's an absolute pain in the ass. But
Yeah. He is a pain in the ass. All right, guys. That's our time on Brothers View. Appreciate you. See us next time. Thank you.